What's up, everybody? If you can hear me, put the LUs in the chat. Y'all see who we got in the building today? There we go, LU. Let's go. What's up, DeQuay? We'll get about 30 more seconds. All right, LU's off the chart. That's what I want to see. All right. Okay. Thank y'all so much for joining us. We have a special guest, and he's here to give you some gems. I know a lot of y'all have been waiting to see him. And you know me. My name is Broadus, founder, managing member of Level Up in Tech. But we have somebody that's joining us right now. And you know what? I want y'all to put the JBs in the chat right now. Y'all already know how we get down. Put the JBs in the chat, and we ain't gonna start. Put them in there. We have a gentleman that in itself just become the face of AWS, right? Every time we think of cloud and AWS, we see this man everywhere, right? He's become someone to strive to be like in this industry, right? The cultivating the change in cloud technology, digital transformation that we all see today. JBs, not JNs now. Make sure you hit that right button, JBs. But I want to introduce y'all, if y'all don't know him, and you should, Vice President and Chief Evangelist of Amazon Web Services. We have Jeff Barr. How are you, sir? Thank you so much for joining us.
I am doing great, and I'm thrilled to have this opportunity to speak with you today.
Hey, I appreciate you joining our guests and our students, and our community is so excited to have you. You see the JBs going crazy right now. So we'll be discussing the importance of reskilling and upskilling and how AWS certifications can help you on this journey. So if you don't have your notebook out, make sure you take it out right now. Take the notes, because we're going to be dropping some gems. All right. So we're going to cut straight to it, right? We're going to get an introduction. We want to know your story and your journey. So can you briefly share your journey with AWS and how you got started and what led you to where you are now?
Wow. Okay. So I'm kind of an old guy. I just turned 63 this month. And
You don't look it. You don't look it.
Thank you. I have had the most fun in tech you can possibly imagine. So way back in the late 1970s, back when personal computers were a brand new thing. This is the brands of like the Altair and the IMSI, the computers that got us started here on the small computer revolution. I was a teenager, and I was lucky enough to get a job in one of the first computer stores in the world. This was up here in Seattle, in this area called Green Lake. And I would take 2 buses to get there after school to go to my after school job. And the title they gave me was janitor, but I'd never had the mop or the broom. My job was to actually open up all of the books and the magazines and the literature that were coming into the store and open it up. And I was supposed to just put it on the shelf for our customers to browse and buy. But right there in front of me was all this amazing stuff about this brand new, exciting industry. And what I did is I just immersed myself in all this content, and I'd be supposed to be putting stuff on the shelf, but I'd just be flipping through it and reading it, trying to understand all the hardware and the software and the industry and the players. And what that meant was that and in Amazon terms, we call this diving deep, just really understanding what you care about. But that meant that when customers walked in, that even though I was just the long-haired kid over in the corner, the other employees who maybe hadn't put so much energy into this, they would say, hey, go talk to that guy over in the corner. He can explain everything to you. And bizarrely enough, like 40 plus years later, I'm now doing that same job at Amazon still, where I immersed myself in the tech. I work closely with our service teams to understand every new launch that they have. And I read the docs, but I always use the services, make sure I really understand them. I don't want surface, I don't want marketing messages. I want to make sure that I really get them. And then I explain things. And I've been writing a blog since 2004 where I share a lot of these launches. I've written 3,500 posts over the years for that blog. I love to do live streams. I meet with customers. I go out and I do events and conferences and so forth. And had a lot of exciting times in between. I've got a couple degrees in computer science. I've got a degree in communications and digital media. But I just love this idea of understanding and explaining and being that bridge effectively between the tech world and the customers.
Yeah. So a few things I heard from you that those of you who are listening need to take notes. Number one, when you found something that you were interested in, you jump head first. You dive deep into this complex thing. And with doing that consistently every day, you now became a super valuable person on a team that really kind of outgrew some of the people who didn't take the initiative to do that. You were the go-to guy for the information. You were the go-to guy for everything that they needed to know because of your initiative of, I'm going to just immerse myself in this culture and in this technology. That's correct, right?
That's right. And there's a phrase that I came up with a long time ago that I think encapsulate this. I say, it takes a long time to be an instant success. And what I mean by that is that when you see someone who's suddenly become prominent or famous or something, they didn't just materialize out of nowhere. They put in years and sometimes decades of work getting ready, and then suddenly they're pushed out on stage or they're in the spotlight, and all of that prep work is what let them shine when you finally get to see them. But it's so rare in the world that the amateur just gets the microphone handed to them and like, wow, they're amazing, right? We see that happen occasionally, but the reality is for all of us, we have to study and iterate and try again and go through some twists and turns. And the process is so subtle and so gradual that you don't even realize yourself as you're growing and improving.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it takes, that time, right? So you got to put the time in, you got to put the work in, you got to be dedicated, you got to be consistent. Those are two things that you definitely have to understand before you even start. If you have a vision of getting into cloud, you want to be a cloud engineer, cloud operations engineer, cloud architect, it takes dedication and consistency. And we are looking at example of it today, right now, as Jeff Barr talks, right? So I know we talked about bridging the gap as well. So another question for you. So how do you see the role of reskilling and upskilling and bridging the tech skills gap and creating opportunities for people from diverse backgrounds?
I think it's really important, and I love both of those phrases, the reskilling and the upskilling. To me, reskilling is something that we hear more from the corporate side, and we hear that because the companies say we have some employees, we value them, they understand our business, they understand our current technology, and while the easy thing to do might be to hire fresh people with the appropriate skills, to me, reskilling is the company saying, we're going to invest in our people and we're going to give you some training, some opportunities to grow, and with the hope that we will increase your loyalty and that you'll get to come along with us on a journey. So that to me is the reskilling part. The upskilling part to me is more personal, and when I think about that, it more says, okay, each of us is at some level of understanding and competence with tech. But by upskilling, we can always look above and beyond that point and say, okay, given what I've done so far and all the amazing stuff that's out there in the industry right now, what is my next step up, and where can I go from here with that?
Yeah, because one thing's for certain is this is a lifelong learning journey. And you got to be prepared for that, because if you come in and you upskill yourself to a certain level and then you just get complacent, technology changes. AWS is constantly changing and releasing new things and new amazing services. So you'll miss out even after 6 months to a year of just being complacent. So that's an important thing for you all that's watching and listening today. Always understand that it's going to be a lifelong learning journey if you're in this industry. And if you're complacent now, let's spark that fire and really get ready to start upskilling and see what this next level is for you.
I couldn't agree more. So what I often describe cloud knowledge is almost the same way that if you have some radioactive material, that radioactive material always has a half-life. And that means that after some period of time, half of the radiation will have radiated out. And cloud knowledge, the half-life of your knowledge right now might be 12 to 18 months. And that doesn't often mean that what you know is wrong, because those basic facts, the understanding of the services is still going to be correct. But it does mean that half of what you know might not be the latest information anymore. And you just don't want to fall behind, because then you're going to have to work twice as hard as before to keep up. And I've always found it's better to learn a little tiny bit ahead of time. It's almost like there's some things that we all do in our daily routines. Like we'll do things the night before to make sure we're ready for the morning. Learning is that same kind of thing, where you could wait until you are now in a pinch and you have to learn something really quick. Or you might look at the trends, the styles, you might look at the things you can see other people interested in and say, okay, that is the world sending me a bit of a message that I should pay attention to. And if I hear a few people that I respect and have been right in the past about something, if they're paying attention, well, maybe that's my signal I should pay attention as well.
More of the story I'm taking is stay ready so you don't have to get ready. That's what it is.
That's right. Like in the early days of the cloud, there were a few super early adopters who saw the value, and oftentimes they'd pull out their personal credit card and they'd create their AWS account, and they'd be creating buckets and launching instances and setting up databases on their own, and out of their own personal interest and with their own just kind of personal motivation to make it happen. And that was awesome that they did that. And then at some point they went to the office and the company says, oh, guess what? We're going to be doing cloud this afternoon, and we're going to do a transformation. We're going to change the entire IT over to the cloud. And that preparation paid off. And they're like, hey, by the way, I've been doing this for the last 6 months on my own, of my own initiative, with my own money. Like, how good do you look in front of your manager when you do that? And that you care so much about it that you didn't wait for the company to tell you, that you just we're so personally invested in this that you invested in yourself to make it happen.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's a gem. Hey, put the gems in the chat right now. If everything that we're saying now is super valuable, put the gems in the chat. So let's move forward to a topic that I think a lot of people deem is important: the importance of certifying with AWS. All right. So what do you see as the core value of an AWS certification?
Okay. So I see it from a couple different directions. The end goal of certification to me is that it makes you more hireable, because your potential employers can look at you and the certifications, and it itself indicates two things. First, it indicates that you should have demonstrated your knowledge and your ability to apply a certain set of technologies in a given area. But it also says that you are a diligent person who is able to study something, to get experience with it, commit enough of it to memory and understanding that you can actually go and actually pass the test to earn that certification. So I think that part's important. But like Steve Jobs once said, the journey is the reward. This idea that you're just committing to yourself and saying, okay, maybe it's my time I could otherwise just be watching videos or just doing nothing. I'm actually committing to this upskilling investment in myself. So that commitment to yourself and saying, okay, I want to be somebody different in the future. I'm going to invest in myself and make that happen. There's this phrase I've heard from Adam Savage a couple of times, and he says, do things that your future self will thank you for. And I really like that phrase. Like, kind of any prep you do early in your career that later you'll say, I had the opportunity to kind of be a slacker, or to put a little energy in when everybody else was goofing off. You'll thank yourself for that later.
Yep, I totally agree. And that's really, the mindset that I took on when I was trying to transition into cloud from a banker. A lot of people that I talked to didn't understand what I was doing. and didn't really believe in it as well. But, I understood the value of where the industry was going, what companies were going to need in the future. And I was like, this cloud technology, I mean, I'm using it on apps, video games. I mean, you can't tell me we're not going to need more of this stuff in the future. And I just, immerse myself in it and start hitting those AWS certifications hard to just learn the foundations of it.
So, Broadus, I can also tell that my audience cares a lot about this. So just about like a little over 2 weeks ago, I shared a certification roadmap on LinkedIn. And generally, the kinds of things I share on LinkedIn might get 10, 20, sometimes 30,000 impressions, which is really good. This roadmap was so popular that it's going to hit 1 million sometime in the next couple of days.
Wow.
So that is just beyond runaway bestseller. And I don't really aspire to hit any level of metrics because you just never know what's going to be popular. But
Right.
after putting that out and seeing that was a thing that people cared a lot about, I'll certainly keep my eyes open for future content of that type to share even more broadly.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, I can dig up that link for you and share it to you.
Yep. Thank you so much. So for those who might be hesitant, about pursuing AWS certifications due to time or financial constraints, what advice would you give them about the long-term benefits of making this investment?
Well, we always like to say at Amazon that it's still day one. And what that often means is that we've had a certain amount of growth and success so far. But when you look at what we've been able to do over the last 15, 17 years, as far as starting with a couple services and now hundreds, to look at from this like tiny business to now many tens of billions. But then you look at that compared to the size of the world's IT market, which is measured in multiple trillions of dollars per year. Mm-hmm. You can see that the cloud is going to be increasingly relevant and put to use in that market, and it's going to be just a bigger and bigger piece of it. So current employers are going to say, okay, it's time for us to finally move to the cloud. Who's got the right skills? And future potential employers are going to say, okay, we are now doing our digital transformation. We're growing. We're scaling. Where are we going to get the right skills? Of all the customers I've spoken to, I mean, specifically this year, but in going back to years past, even when I ask them, like, what is their biggest challenge? It is, do we have the right people with the right skills? It's not, do we have the budget? Do we have the vision? It's, we need to have the right people with the right skills.
And that's what everyone should be looking at right now, right? Where the opportunities are going in the next year or even two. And not only that, where you could be within that opportunity, right? People understand this. Your career can grow so fast in the next 12 to 24 months based on what you start doing today.
Exactly. And I love to hear those stories. And there's a few internal folks that I mentor. And one of my colleagues, he's in Nigeria. So we had a call early this morning. And 2+ years ago, he'd reached out before he worked for AWS. And he said, oh, I'm super excited about AWS. He was already working in IT. He said, I'm going to earn a couple certifications and I want to become a solutions architect. And I gave him some pointers, gave him some feedback. He went through the interview process. He got hired and he is doing super awesome. He told me this morning, he said he's already earned 10 certifications and he's working on 2 more. And that's like super intense and super dedication that he's put that level of energy into making that happen for himself. And I don't know, I love to see people like have big dream big dreams and then actually make them happen. It's so awesome. I think with all these things, the self-improvement that's possible. I like when I was growing up, the route to success was more kind of a very narrow channel, and it was you needed to like earn the best grades in before you got to college, and you had to go to the right college, you had to go through the right set of classes and go to the small kind of right set of companies, and that left most of the world out, including me, really. And this idea now that you can self-study and just you and your initiative and whatever connection you've got, I've seen people learn and program on a phone or or almost anywhere. And this idea that once you're connected, and you can just start searching for stuff, and any number of amazing resources pop up in, from different presenters and in different languages with different presentation styles. One of those is going to match you and resonate with you. And that will be the thing that turns you on. And all this is just there and pretty much just free for the taking. And I mean, when I was young, information wasn't free. Information was, you save up your money you earn, and you like beg your parents to take you to the bookstore, and you spend your money, or you go to the public library. And now it's just, well, you just do a search and like, wow, look, I have so much in front of me that the most interesting challenge is to pick from the 100 results, which one or two do I want to start with?
Yep. And the big challenge too, for those that are listening, is just understanding you have to be disciplined, consistent with just taking smaller amounts every day and just being consistent with learning, and you would just grow. Don't be too hard on yourself about you're not understanding something, or, something's just not clicking about, you becoming an expert within this topic in a week. Give yourself the time, and you will learn other things when you learn other things.
Yeah,
this is how it goes.
It's a really tough challenge. And what I do is I have a to-do list on my desk, and I even have things on my to-do list that I repeat every day, like the simplest of stuff, like do my work email, do my personal email, take care of my social media, and being able to just make that little check mark every day on the list as like that little physical motion. And maybe this is like the silliest little trick ever, but I've kind of trained myself that as I'm picking up my pen and making that little checkbox and saying I did it, give myself a tiny like micro unit of satisfaction out of having gotten something done. It's a really simple mind trick, but getting yourself into this mentality of like doing that motion as the signature of, okay, I accomplished the thing that I wanted to do. It's more powerful than I ever would have thought.
Yeah, there's progression, and celebrate the small things as well. So
exactly.
Now, I know we talked about
long-term track of your, like, keeping a little bit of a record or a history of how you're doing. Like, it might just be a little text file you open up and say, okay, it's Monday, I studied VPC networking for 15 minutes. It's Tuesday, I studied IP addresses. It's Wednesday, I studied such and such. Maybe drop a couple of notes in there of what it is that you learned and drop in the links. And then I also say, well, if you're going through the effort to learn something, you might as well document it, but you might as well just document it for other people as well. And to me, this is the ultimate cheat code of learning. While you're learning, capture your thoughts, your impressions, your successes. Is it a video? Is it a blog post? Is it a little tweet? Is it something you drop on LinkedIn? Like, take that and share it. And you haven't done double work. You've maybe done 10% more work, but you've actually gotten double value out of that learning exercise. And you've maybe even kind of compelled yourself to say, well, I've got this audience for my learning journey. I'm going to keep at it because I can't let my audience down. That to me, that's another really simple cheat code. This idea of getting double value out of what you do.
And he just dropped the gem, y'all. So put the gems in the chat. All right. Now, when we talk about consistent learning and building yourself up to transition into this amazing field in technology, right? What advice do you have for junior engineers trying to make their mark in the industry and get noticed, let's say, by recruiters at major companies like AWS?
So again, I think we're in a much different world than the one I mostly grew up in. There's a lot of ways that you can share your success now. I mean, we've got social media, we've got blog posts, we've got videos, we've got things like GitHub, we've got public code repositories. If an employer contacts you and says, well, so what have you really done? And instead of saying, well, I'm waiting for that big opportunity, you're like, well, I wrote a script and it does A, B, and C. And I wrote this cool thing and it queries the AWS APIs and it makes a little dashboard or it makes a little diagram. Or I saw something awesome on Hacker News. It does data visualization. I applied that to a bunch of AWS databases and APIs. So as part of your learning should always be doing. That you can absorb so much by reading. But for most of us, hands-on is so important. Actually using these services and using APIs and getting a sense for, like, my example is always like, we never document for an API. Like, does it respond immediately, or does it kick off some kind of workflow? Does it take a minute, 5 minutes, an hour for that workflow to run? That practical hands-on experience is not something you're going to read about in like a study guide. You have to actually go hands-on and put that time in.
And that's what it's all about, right? Just really hands-on, right? Putting the time in and being able to showcase what you've done. If you're in front of a recruiter, you best be researching the company that you're trying to apply to, so you can showcase how you can solve problems that they're looking for you to solve, right?
Yeah.
Do you have this?
Also, I totally agree. And when you get to the point of the interview, make sure you understand the company that you are applying to. What's that company all about? What's their business? What do they do? See what kind of research you can do to figure out what is their tech stack? What are their, like, what is their, like, mentality? How do they work? I still remember, it's coming up on like 21 years ago, when I was interviewing for Amazon. One of the questions they asked me was, are you actually an Amazon customer? And of course I was. And I said, yep, I absolutely, for sure, I'm a customer. And later, after I'd been hired, I asked the interviewer who'd interviewed me, I said, why did you even think that was the thing you had to ask me? And they said, well, believe it or not, Jeff, people have applied here not even understanding what the company's all about or what we do. It's like, wow, kind of shocking. But make sure you understand the company really well. Try to figure out how the work you would be doing is going to actually help them to succeed, and like, do as much research and understanding up front to say, make it really clear that your burning desire is to get into that company and to help them to succeed.
Man, this is awesome. And, I hope you all are getting this value that Jeff is putting down. So, and I know your time is super valuable, and you have a few more minutes. My last question to you for closing thoughts is, what advice would you give to someone starting a career in tech or cloud computing today?
I would always say, look to the future and never get stuck on a particular version or generation of any tech. I remember one of my first programming jobs. I was early 20s, and this was like a professional job, and people wore like ties and stuff to work. We all got like actually dressed up to go to work, and all these professional consulting types. But a lot of them were, well, I was 20 something, so these folks looked like incredibly old. They were probably like way younger than me, but a lot of them had gotten just fixated on one version of some tech. And I remember this one person I was talking to, and he kept saying, oh, these small computers are never going to amount to anything. It's mainframes and mini computers. Like, how could a small computer possibly get any powerful enough to do anything of value? And I remember thinking, I don't need to grow up to be like you. I'd much rather be on the leading edge than on this kind of like fixated on one version. And that like that eye to the future, that mental flexibility, I think is just so important.
So once again, don't get complacent. Always have an interest in learning, right? Always push yourself to be able to upskill, right? Because you want to stay ready so you don't have to get ready. And I hope you all
be a little bit early than to be a little bit late.
Yeah, right. No, for sure. Because if you haven't reskilled, or if you haven't upskilled and they ask you, and you're going to put so much tremendous stress on yourself that, you won't be able to, retain all the information that you need. So a chunk of it a day, right? A slice of that pie a day. Eventually you eat the whole pie.
Yeah.
So I definitely appreciate you joining us, Jeff. And y'all put the JBs in the chat right now. Let's show Jeff some love. He dropped so many gems on this, so you better be taking notes. And it's just such an honor to have you here. And I know the whole community is just so excited to see you today and listen to you speak and just have a conversation with us. For you all, if you're looking to connect with Jeff, make sure you connect. He's busy. He got so many people. Do we have a link, Mel, of Jeff's LinkedIn? She said 1 minute, but put Jeff's LinkedIn on there. Connect with Jeff. He's busy, but this is somebody that you can connect with that's putting out content that can help you go to the next level. if you want to, Jeff, send me I'll go check out the link that you put for the certification path. I think I've seen it earlier anyway. I'll reshare that for those that follow me that need to connect with Jeff that doesn't get the link here today as well.
Perfect. This has been a blast. Really enjoyed speaking with you.
Yeah, thank you so much, y'all. And thank you so much, Jeff. Rewatch this. We're going to have the recording up soon. My name is Broadus. That's Jeff Barr, Chief Evangelist of AWS. And we thank y'all so much for coming. And let's continue to level up the tech. We out of here.
See y'all later.